I'll kind of go over to our agenda here before I pass it to Ross, who's going to kick us off and just kind of walk through what we're going to be covering today. So, we're going to start with some key findings from our recent 2025 buyer behavior report, which leads into some of the other topics that Ross will be walking us through. So, the new front door, what we're calling it, but large language models and how your buyers are finding you, as well as the G2 Advantage and how to get reviews that rank. And then I'll kind of take over and talk a little bit about how to turn feedback into fuel when it comes to reviews. And then also a little bit more about some life cycle driven review strategies, as this is one of the best ways that we can see folks taking advantage of their customer base and getting those reviews. And then we'll wrap it up with some Q&A. But we're excited to get started. So I'll pass it over to Ross, who's going to walk us through the first couple items here.
All right. Thank you, Tracy. Hello, everybody. Wonderful to be here with you today. I'm very excited to kick things off here. Quick introduction. I'm Ross Briggs, VP of Buyer Experience at G2. My teams both are responsible for our SEO practice, as well as our buyer-facing features across our site. I'm going to start with some insights from the 2025 Buyer Behavior Report. And this report, if you're not already familiar with it, is a report that G2 releases every year. This is a survey of about 1,200 decision makers, software buyers, and really shows the latest and greatest in terms of what's changing, what a software company should know about what's changing within the buying landscape this year. It has tons of great insights about buying committees, the way that those are changing, AI features and what buyers are looking for. But the trend I wanted to focus on today is this one here. And what you see on your screen, this is a survey that was done, that one of the questions from the survey, and this is really looking at which sources do software buyers rely on for research solutions. And we know for a long time, probably for the last 2 decades, that Google has really been the go-to search solution, whether you're looking for software solutions for your business or you're looking for a local plumber. That started to change both in the world of B2B and B2C. And what was really interesting this year is that we saw this even more than ever pronounced within the buyer behavior report. So what you see on the screen, the purple bar highlighted in each of these charts, and each of them just looks at companies from different size businesses. So small businesses, medium, mid-market, enterprise, et cetera. And for a long time, what we saw is that Google was the primary research method for all of these different cohorts of survey respondents. What was really interesting this year is that we saw that the AI search component started becoming a much bigger part of the way that buyers are conducting research. And interestingly enough, this is most pronounced within the largest organizations, and ultimately not a massive surprise, as we realize that in the world of business today, people are being asked to do more with less and are really looking for efficient solutions to help them within their research processes. And one part of the software research process that's incredibly important is the shortlisting process. This is the beginning of the buyer journey. And at this point, the software buyer is confirming that this category of software is going to be a solution for their needs and looking for a few different product suggestions from the different research platforms. And what we saw for this shortlisting process is actually that these generative AI chatbot experiences have now become the #1 source of information as buyers are establishing the shortlist. This is an incredibly important marketing moment and one that we've been very excited to start to capitalize on G2 within these new generative AI chatbot platforms. And so while SEO is still incredibly important as both a marketing channel as well as for a research method for buyers, these large language models have really become the new front door to reaching buyers, to selling your products. And so excited to talk about the ways that this has both changed the search landscape and the way that marketers can start to capitalize on some of those changes. So what you see on the screen here is a couple of different logos, and you're probably familiar with most of these logos. These are ChatGPT, Perplexity, Copilot, Gemini, Minstrel, and DeepSeek. And some buyers are naturally going to these for their research needs, as we saw in the previous slides. So we know that buyers continue to rely on reviews for transparent and authentic feedback about the solutions that they're considering. And now those reviews are directly being surfaced by the AI platforms and provided oftentimes verbatims from G2 reviews coming through directly within these platforms. And also AI has kind of impacted the behavior that's happening, both because some searchers are now relying directly on these platforms, but also even if your buyers have not migrated to ChatGPT or one of the other solutions, and they're still using Google, or maybe they're using Bing or a different search engine, AI has actually been impacting behavior on the traditional search engines as well. This is because of features like AI overviews, even Google's AI mode that they're releasing, which is essentially a full page AI driven experience. And we know that these will become more and more integrated within the search experiences over time. And so the biggest impact that we've seen from this introduction of more answers being surfaced within these different research platforms is ultimately that the click-through rates that we got used to as marketers from the world of 10 blue links on the Google results page has dropped a bit now that some of that information is readily available on the SERP itself. But what that also means is because this kind of pre-context is coming through to searchers from the results page themselves, that when the user does come through to a site to conduct that deeper research in one of the products that they saw within those answers, the engagement rates and ultimately conversion rates of those users is up higher than it's ever been before. If you take the analogy of a car dealership, right, you've got fewer of the tire kickers coming through, but the real customers who are looking to purchase vehicles are still making it onto the lot, still engaging with your team. And so it's great to be able to win those marketing moments. And ultimately, this idea of winning the answer before that click-through rate is more important than ever before. So what we've really seen here is that while SEO is still incredibly important, AI really is this new front door for B2B product research. And so the way that you can think about this, right? So the term GEO has now sort of established itself as the new form of SEO for generative experiences and generative engines. Excuse me. And so while in the old world of SEO, we used to think about winning the ranking and winning the click, now in the world of LLMs and AI, the idea of winning the answer and being present on these answers with your product and having favorable brand sentiment around your product is more important than ever before. Another trend that we've seen really materialize and start to take hold within the new AI search experiences is that it's sort of changed the behavior and the way that buyers are searching for products and solutions. For a long time, searchers were trained that you kind of want to do a little bit of caveman speak within your keywords that you're using with Google. And the fewer words that you have in there, the more focused the keyword, and therefore the more relevant results that you would see in the results. That's actually changing now. We know, of course, that that's changing with places like LLMs, like ChatGPT. And the more nuanced question that you provide, the more specific answer you're going to get. We're starting to also see that trend take place within traditional search engines. An interesting announcement from Google a couple of weeks ago is that they're going to start to expand the query box to accommodate up to 2,000 characters of text to actually encourage these longer tail keywords. And so what one trend that this can cause is some of the traditional SEO tools are actually still catching up to this trend. And so what you see on the screen here is some trends in keyword search volume for popular types of software. And what it looks like on the screen here is that these keywords that have largely been trending up over the years are starting to now actually trend down. But when you dig into the details and the data underneath that, what's actually happening is that these short form, top of funnel head terms are actually now transitioning into much more long tail, nuanced terms. And so marketers need to understand who their ICPs are, what search volume looks like for SEO keywords around those ICPs, and then how that translates into specific prompts and delivering information that will deliver on those specific prompts. Now, another trend that's really evolving within generative engine optimization is that the keywords and the rankings are starting to change, and that's introducing new KPIs that marketers need to focus on in the world of generative engine optimization. So there's two main KPIs. One is brand mentions and sentiment. And that's really this idea of, is your product being mentioned, and do you have favorable sentiment from users within the answers that the LMs and SEO engines are basically providing here? The other one is link citations. So link citations are the clickable links and essentially indicate that your content, your page, was used as the data source to produce the answer that the LM is showing to users. So when you think about optimization for these two KPIs, there's some parallels to the world of SEO. And so when you think about brand mentions and sentiment, this is most closely related to the idea of off-page reputation and or link building in the world of SEO. So the key to really getting mentioned within these answers and having your product appear, these are things like mentions on highly cited websites, collecting great testimonials and reviews from your customers to be able to answer the specific questions that buyers are looking for. This idea of consensus across various sites. So not just do you mention your product on your own website, but are you also cited and mentioned across other sites? And do you have sort of this web of consensus where your product is always mentioned when it comes time to talk about the topic of your category of software? User forums and UGC sites, places like Reddit, Quora, of course, sites like G2 as well. Getting your brand mentioned there, getting discussions about your brand, incredibly impactful for LM visibility. On the link citation side of it, and this is where G2 is most focused as link citations. Link citations mean that the pages where our customers' profiles are showing, where the reviews are coming through, are then being used directly as the data source for where these brand mentions are coming from. And the link citation is more about the on-page optimization that you can do. So it starts with foundational technical SEO elements like crawler accessibility. LLM.txt is an evolving technical area of LLM optimization that you can use, making sure that all the different user agents are able to access your site and crawl your content. From there, it's things like topical coverage breadth. Do you have just one page on your site that talks about a topic, or do you cover it in different nuanced ways across different pages? The third bullet is specific data aligned to prompts. You'll also hear this termed as cosine similarity, and something that LLMs are using. It's a fancy way of saying, do you have a specific answer to the specific question that a user is putting within one of the LLMs when they're looking for information about your product? Collecting reviews is an amazing way of having this specific data because the nuance that comes out within each individual review perfectly aligns to the questions that buyers would be asking who haven't yet used your product. It's also incredibly important to maintain strong rankings on Google and Bing because most of these generative engines, through their RAG methods, are using the index of either Google or Bing in producing results. All right, so those are a little bit of the changes and kind of evolutions that we've seen with the broad adoption of LLMs as research methods for software and services. I now want to talk a little bit about how G2 has been capitalizing on some of these trends and ensuring that the reviews that we collect on our site are coming through to the LLMs and appearing within the answers that they're providing. So really where this starts, one thing about G2 is we designed our site with SEO at its core, and we've now adapted that to fit within the LLM user journeys and prompts versus keywords that are being searched for within these platforms. And so what I mean by that is when you take sort of like the user funnel here and the user journey through a software purchase, it all starts with the awareness moment, right? Looking for a type of a category of software, whether it's CRM, ERP, whatever it is, looking for first, is this product going to be a fit for my business? And then what are the products that I should know about from this category of software. That's that shortlisting moment that we were talking about before. From there, it's really about narrowing it down to a few products to do deeper research in. Questions come through about reviews for those products, what features do they have, product A versus product B, going deeper into nuanced questions that materialize within discussion forums, the pros and cons of different products. And G2 has built pages to align with each of these moments within the buyer journey and targets our pages towards the keywords and now prompts that buyers are using when they're seeking these answers. So let me show you a few examples of how this works within the different LLM platforms and kind of the way that we've been optimizing for these. So we'll start off with awareness. This is category discovery. And so this user, you can see here, the platform is ChatGPT, and this user looked for the best rated onboarding software for sales team. And so what you can see here is the number of products are produced in the answer by ChatGPT. And these products are pulled from G2 reviews, and in this case, the category page. And not only is the category page used as the data source to produce the products being shown within the answer, but you can actually see that the G2 score is coming through directly within the answer and directly showing those great reviews that you've collected on G2 to buyers within this moment, and ensuring that you start off on the short list for these buyers, that they see you there, that they continue on with the research for your product, and that you've essentially made the shortlist moment. From here, we'll go a little bit deeper. In this case, we're looking at the consideration phase and now some product research. So now the user has narrowed it down, and now they're looking at a specific product. This is Perplexity platform. And in this case, they're looking for pros and cons of the SolarWind, in this case, SolarWind's database observability product. So what you can see here is that the pros and cons and in this case, the pros are coming through from G2, and the ways that we've collected those pros and cons and then surfaced them up into a dedicated landing page perfectly aligns with the keywords, and in this case, prompts that these users are looking for in these moments. And here you can see that your product can remain within through this consideration phase. Your glowing testimonials and reviews come through and reach buyers directly within LLM platforms. So now the buyer has gotten a little bit further along, and they're just looking for the last couple of details in order to finalize their decision and move forward with the product. One key kind of moment and curiosity that buyers have in these moments is understanding, okay, what's the pricing and what are users' perceptions of the pricing? G2 has pricing pages for all of the products in our catalog. And here you can see that this page is coming through. In this case, the user did go to Google and they use the new AI mode from Google. And you can see here that the G2 page is coming through, providing lots of great information about the pricing of the product, as well as user sentiment around those pricing details. And so you can see here whether your user is continuing to use Google or gravitating towards one of these LLM platforms. By collecting reviews and filling out your profile details on G2, you can be present within these marketing moments and really reach users during these incredibly important moments within their journey. There's one more kind of unfair advantage that G2 has that I wanted to mention here in getting visibility on these platforms. And it goes back to that idea that I was talking about on the KPI slide, which is this consensus signal amplification. So to talk about this a little bit more, what this essentially means is that LLMs are probabilistic by nature, right? If you go into the details of how AI works, it's all about association between one term and topic and the other within like a vector database. More technical than I'm going to get into today, but essentially the more association that you have between things like the product, your product reviews, your sentiment around your product, cited in more places around the web, and especially authoritative places around the web, the more likelihood that you're going to be included on the short list, that the sentiment from those reviews will come through for the answer to the question that users are looking for. And G2 has a syndication network to 12 of the most popular software marketplaces on the planet. So some of those include AWS, CDW, Microsoft Azure Marketplace. And the reviews that you collect on G2 don't just stay on G2. They're actually automatically syndicated to these marketplaces where buyers are directly transacting for these products. And what you can see here is this really builds this web of consensus to make sure that the sentiment of the reviews that you collect from G2 are now rehosted on these other authoritative marketplaces. And what you can see here is actually that the AWS marketplace review collected and syndicated by G2 is pulling into Perplexity. And the verbatims of the review about the praise for the scheduling and staffing and how this tool made it much easier for that user is now directly coming through to the response within Perplexity. And so G2 is an amazing data source that fuels many of these answers. And through our syndication network, we not only strengthen that pattern of syndication and authority, but we also multiply the chances that your review will get chosen by hosting it on these other authoritative marketplaces. So these partnerships are actually something that G2 built before LLMs picked up and got popular, but they've been incredibly effective for us in building visibility on behalf of our customers. So last point for me here before I turn it over to Tracy to talk more about collecting some of the reviews here that fuel these answers. G2 is working with a company called Profound, and partnering with them, we've actually been able to quantify and see our exact visibility across the most popular LLMs. And that's where much of the data is coming through for this presentation today. We're tracking over 120,000 individual prompts related to software research. And you can see here, G2 has emerged as the #1 data source across all of these different platforms. Having access to a tool like Profound has been incredibly useful for us to see the nuance of the pages that they're choosing, the type of content that they're gravitating towards, and be able to understand what is this landscape that's unique to LLMs that might be different from our business competitors, might be different from our SEO competitors. We see what these LLMs are gravitating towards, and we're able to optimize our content directly towards them. So this is something we've been leaning into since the end of last year, when really Search GPT started taking off, and we've seen incredible results on behalf of our customers in optimizing for these platforms. So that's a little bit about our visibility on these different platforms. And I'll turn it back over to Tracy to talk about collecting some of this feedback that can fuel your own marketing campaigns.
Yes, thank you, Ross. That was very helpful. And you heard it here first, or you at least heard it here, that reviews and sentiment matter in kind of the new age that we're in. So I'm going to chat through a couple of different opportunities and ways that folks can kind of optimize and maximize their G2 presence via reviews. So first thing that I'll kind of be talking about is hot off the presses. This was released actually on Monday. And some of what I want to focus on is how to kind of minimize the barriers and the lift associated that can kind of be perceived with review asks. So we launched a review refresh campaign. And the great thing about this is, you may have already tapped into your customer base and have a lot of reviews from those folks, but they may be outdated. And so they may be impacting sort of the review decay and kind of, not necessarily helping with your current sentiment. So this is a campaign that is hosted by G2, and it allows you to basically ask for your reviewers to update that review, and you can choose to have it be incentivized or not, but really just kind of gets them giving you an updated version of their feedback, and kind of helps with that present day presence in some of these other places. So this is a really great feature that we just launched. We're super excited about it, but is kind of another way to lessen some of the lift associated with some of those review asks. So this is the first thing that we'll be talking about. And then on the next slide, I'm kind of chatting through a couple of other ways that we can reduce some of the friction potentially with collecting reviews. So we've got a number of beta opportunities that exist at the moment. And my kind of disclaimer at the bottom here is that spots are limited. So definitely definitely sign up if any of these spark your interest, and we'll put a sign up link in the chat for everyone. But the first one is voice reviews. So I don't know, I know we have some folks here who are from everywhere in the world. I definitely have seen that my European counterparts are way ahead on the audio notes and voice notes to friends instead of texting. But this is big in today's day and age. We're kind of, tired of typing all of the things that we want to say. So I would say this is a really great opportunity to have folks be able to use their voice to write a review. And it's a little bit, again, of that lower friction ask for your clients. And then the second one that we have sort of in the same vein is AI assisted review collection via calls and meetings. So if you're on a call with a customer and you are getting some really great feedback from them, rather than having to ask them to go kind of put all of that into a review, you can use call transcripts to basically turn that feedback into high quality pre-filled reviews that are ready to be shared, approved, and published on G2. So this is another opportunity, I think, again, to reduce some of that friction and take advantage of the conversations that you're already having with your customers and collecting that feedback. And then the last one, a little bit different. This is our AI-led custom research. This is a paid beta, just as a note, but for our customers where reviews maybe do not provide the needed depth or specific insights that you're looking for, we can now offer this AI-powered market research. So it allows for rapid interviewing of hundreds of users and buyers to provide you that rich data and insight, but it's driven by conversational AI. So this is something that you can use either for internal insight reports or potentially external marketing collateral. So this is our last sort of beta opportunity on the AI front. Again, do sign up if any of these, kind of pique your interest. We would love to have some of you today that are in our webinar sign up and test these out. But really excited about this kind of new journey that we're going on to kind of, again, help reduce that friction for everyone in their review collection efforts. So now I'm going to switch gears a little bit to lifecycle driven review strategies. And every time I'm talking to customers, I lead a CSM team here at G2. So I get asked by folks when I'm at conferences or just, interacting with customers, this question of what should I be doing that I'm not doing? And that is what I want to talk about a little bit, because there are a lot of really great opportunities for folks to embed review asks into their customer journey. And I don't see it as often as I would like. So my first slide is kind of this. It's got a lot on it, but it is a flywheel that I really like on the right-hand side, as well as a list of recommendations on the left. So I'm not going to highlight every single recommendation here, but what I do want to focus on with this customer lifecycle is sort of this notion of how do you change the culture at your companies to be an always on review collection culture. And I think there's a lot of fear from when I talk to customers about, well, what if we get a negative review and what if, all of these things happen? And what we found is that generally the percentage of positive and negative reviews in review asks tend to be the same, whether you're doing a very targeted ask or an always on review collection. So I'll kind of speak to that later, but these are some ideas of places and time that you can potentially make an ask to your customer and have it, again, not feel like this big lift of just once a quarter or just once after a big product release or something like that, where it's always on. So I would say, like, after onboarding, even if they maybe have not used your product for a long time, it's a great opportunity. They spent a lot of time with you. Ask them about that onboarding experience and have them fill out a review. Same thing with a business review or an in-person meeting where you're talking about, maybe some wins that they've been having, or even some feedback. Ask them to write a review and include that so that you can publicly then respond to the review and say thank you for that feedback, and maybe speak to your product roadmap or something like that. I think support tickets, most of you have probably heard of that, as well as MPS CSAT feedback. I think that's pretty typical. But the last one I would highlight is just contract renewal. This is a great opportunity, again, to kind of create another ask. We're so happy that you're spending another year with us or more. We'd love to hear how your experience has been, creating that always on sort of review generation life cycle. And the other two that I would just highlight on the recommendations that I don't see enough of on the left-hand side, CSM spiffs or sales spiffs. This is something that your account teams can help with so that you can create some internal competition. It's a great thing to do maybe when you don't have some in-person events or you don't have some other places where you're typically asking for reviews, maybe during the summer when it's a little slower, asking for those CSMs or sales folks to be involved in a spiff, and then email signatures, adding it to the signature for all of your account managers or CSMs is another great one that I don't see very often. So those are some of my quick tips. And then on the next slide, I've just got another kind of data point related to in-app reviews. So we've seen that customers who are utilizing in-app tools generate 3x the number of reviews than those without. And this was not even prompted. This just happened. I don't know if you all noticed, but I got a little kind of pop-up while we've been here in this webinar in the top right where it says rate Goldcast. That is a great example of an in-app kind of, we're using their product, we're currently, having an experience. So they're then prompting us to kind of give a review. That was not planned. I didn't know that was going to happen, but what a great example of exactly what I'm speaking to. This also allows for folks to have an easier process submitting that review because they're already using your product, so we can validate that they're users. So this is just a really, really great way to kind of have an always on collection. We did release some updates to our in-app review levers last week, I believe it was, that makes it a little bit easier to set up. So if you are interested, definitely talk to your account team, and we'd love to get some of you set up after this webinar. And then the other sort of slide that I have here with some words on the page is related to myth busting. I'm going to do a little bit of myth busting. Ross, if you can advance me forward one. It is about capturing authentic feedback, and I've got sort of instead of this, do this, because we hear a lot of what's on the left, and I want to challenge everyone to think a little bit more about the right. So the first one here is asking only your 8+ NPS respondents to leave reviews. While I understand the kind of sentiment here, this is definitely not best practice, and it actually does go against FTC guidelines. So what we recommend and what is best practice is really finding ways to automate those review asks, no matter what their NPS response is. And again, I mentioned this earlier, we find that folks are sometimes a little nervous, like what if this opens the floodgates and we get a lot of negative reviews? Number one, we found that it actually results in the same, kind of sentiment results as a review campaign. So a kind of like specific ask to a specific group of folks that you may be doing through G2. But it also is not a bad thing to have negative reviews. And we've got a lot of materials on how to take advantage of those reviews publicly. And folks actually trust your page a little bit more when they see some of those negative reviews. So that's another kind of just myth busting moment here. For the next one, I'll kind of combine some of these, but the general idea is we've got like only including your advocates in outreach campaigns or only asking for reviews after a customer renews. I would say generally what we're getting at is you want to kind of think about more ways that you can embed these review asks into the customer lifecycle and not focusing on just a specific time or point in time. So that is something that we want you all to kind of like hopefully walk away from here, as well as running campaigns once a quarter only to your best customers. Again, we want you kind of thinking of what are other ways that we can have review asks throughout their entire journey, as opposed to just our best customers at this one point in time. So hopefully we dispelled some myths here and got you all thinking a little bit more about how to kind of keep the floodgates open, so to speak, and take advantage of that. And then I've got this last slide from me before we go into Q&A. So definitely, if you have any questions, make sure that you're popping those in the Q&A. But this last slide, we have a PDF of this because it is kind of small. So I wanted to make sure you all can download this. It's in the docs section. So if you see on the chat, there's chat messages, docs, Q&A. You can find the docs. This is a PDF that you can just download. And without getting into like the nitty gritty here, the idea is you can see on the bottom, we've got different colors for review campaigns aligned with report dates. And then we've got, events, sales competitions. And then at the very top in that green color, you see the always on automated review collection. So that's happening all year long. And then you've got some of these other touch points where you may be having other types of activations for reviews. So this is just another kind of example and visual of how to kind of incorporate all of these different components into your review generation strategy so that you are showing up in all of the ways that Ross mentioned at the beginning of this call and really leaning into that sentiment. So I know I see Sierra already chatting about being in the Q&A. I'm excited to see what's in the Q&A, but we'll transition now into that Q&A section for me and Ross. And I don't know, Ross, if you have some questions that you've already picked out to answer, that would be great.
Let me share the first one, and thank you, Lynn, for this question. So how important are blog articles and other content formats besides reviews in your strategy to be present in the AI search results? Great question. Blog posts are incredibly useful in showing up, for a long time within traditional SEO, and now just as much within the world of AI chatbots and LLMs. There's a few things that blog posts allow you to do in addition to the core product pages of your site, or in our case, like the category pages and product profiles on G2. The first thing that they allow you to do is blogs allow an incredible amount of content freedom, right? So you can put basically any format of content. You can add FAQs. You can do lots of great things that align specifically with what you're seeing in terms of, if you are using a tool like Profound and you're seeing this content format is being selected from competitor pages, you can easily replicate that and bring that to fruition for your own strategy. The other thing that blog posts do is that they help to build that topical breadth of coverage that I was mentioning. So they produce more and more pages across your site that are talking about a similar topic in a new way and improve the authority of not only that blog post itself, but also the other pages on your site. To talk a little bit about it for G2, I think the number one page type that we have that builds visibility within LLMs is our category pages. But then the number two is actually blog posts. So incredibly important for our strategy and something I'd highly recommend for yours. Tracy, do you have one that you want to answer, or do you want me to hop into another?
Yeah, it's not in the Q&A, but it is in the chat. So I'll answer it live. I was trying to type it out, but if I believe you asked about the features being available for paying customers when they're fully rolled out. So right now, voice reviews are actually live for everyone. And if you go to ai.g2.com, which I'll put this part in the chat, at the bottom, there is a little window that says new review with your voice. So if you wanted to review a product that you use in your everyday via voice, you can do it that way. Right now, we are specifically in beta with paying customers to run like specific campaigns, but eventually that will be released to kind of the general audience, and everyone will have the ability to review via voice if that's their choice. And then for some of the other mentions that I had, so that was voice reviews. The second one was the meeting transcripts. That is currently with paying customers. I don't know about the like long term what that will look like. I will ask, but right now it is purely with paying customers. And then the last one is a paid beta. So that one is also at the moment a paid beta for our current customers, but that may again change, I would say, depending on the learnings from the beta. So I'll kind of make sure that we keep you all informed, but that's the current status for everyone.
Awesome. And I will jump into our next one here. Looks like we got one from Jenna. So previous SEO guidance has taught us to write one really great comprehensive blog post per keyword versus many smaller ones. Does this still hold water with LLMs now that queries are longer? Great question. If you remember back to one of the slides, I was talking about the idea of cosine similarity. And this is the idea that if a user is asking a very specific question within their prompt, the LLMs are going to do their best to find a very specific answer that aligns directly to that question. What we've seen actually is that The publishing of smaller ones that are more specifically tied to that specific question has been incredibly useful for us, especially within Perplexity and ChatGPT. Whereas I'd say Google and Gemini are still kind of going towards that bigger comprehensive blog. If you do have the comprehensive blog, it's a great idea to add additional FAQs to either interspersed within the content or at the bottom of the page. And if you are looking specifically to optimize towards Perplexity and ChatGPT, publishing the smaller ones to cover those specific questions is a great idea as well.
I can take it back here, Ross, and answer one. We're popcorning. I like it. So the next question here is just what are some easy, low effort ways for us to get more reviews from our customers throughout their journey without us making them feel like we're constantly asking? So I would say that the in-app lever is probably the best way that you can accomplish this because it is kind of always on, it's in the background, and it doesn't feel like, oh my gosh, here we're getting another email necessarily. So I would say that would be my best recommendation is really leaning into the in-app review levers. And if you have questions about this, definitely let your account team, not your product team, your account team know, because we'd love to kind of walk you all through this. So that would be my biggest suggestion. And if you are not a current customer of G2, finding other ways to do that in your own kind of review ask, whether it's a link to your profile page, you can definitely still kind of make those asks without it being through like our G2 in product in-app review lever. So that would be my recommendation.
Awesome. And looks like I got one here from Adrian. A list of the partner marketplaces that G2 syndicates to besides just the Microsoft Marketplace. We do. So let me rattle these off real quick. So it's the Microsoft Azure Marketplace, the AWS Marketplace, Amazon Web Services Marketplace, CDW Marketplace, SalesLoft partnerships and software marketplace, the UKG marketplace, Paylocity, ADP, AppDirect, SAP, Rippling, and IBM are all syndication partners of G2. Sierra, thank you for the question. Curious what your sense is of the LLMs that companies of different sizes tend to rely on for software buying. And folks in different types of roles, technical versus business focused. Yeah, so I'll try to answer the question, and you can maybe chime in on the chat if I get it wrong or kind of answer it in a different way that you had in mind. So what we've seen, there is still this strong correlation, right, between the search engine rankings on Google and Bing, and then the pages being retrieved for answers within LLMs. And so there is still this correlation that is largely connected to the links coming into a site. And sort of that relationship over time has tended to favor larger organizations. And so there is a pattern of larger organizations having a benefit in appearing for some searches for these keywords. What I'd say is probably the number one opportunity for smaller size businesses is having that deeper connection to the specific question through that cosine similarity, and publishing sometimes more of those nuanced, longer tail kind of keywords. And that's always been an opportunity for smaller size businesses within SEO. But now, because of the long tail nature of the prompts coming through, I'd say that opportunity is more pronounced than ever before for a smaller business to be more relevant for those answers and therefore build some presence for themselves on LLMs. In terms of different types of roles, we definitely do see technical folks gravitating towards LLMs. And I'd say in part that's because the LLMs are so useful for things like coding and different applications that way. And so they've naturally become research methods as well for those folks who are using the tools in that way. But I think across the board, it's become a pretty useful research method for all types of business users. And hope I addressed your question there. Aaron, I saw where your question came through, so I think I know what you're asking about here. So the chart that I showed before with the bar graph where G2 was at the top, the numbers on the chart, these are citations. So these are the number of times that a G2 page appeared as a data source for the, as I mentioned, 100,000 or so prompts that we're tracking visibility on. Essentially, it means that every time we have a citation in there, we got one of the products that we represent on our site mentioned as a solution within those short lists and within those questions being asked. What period of time? That is over a 7-day period. So we update that slide monthly, and we always do a 7-day running time period, of course.
Okay, Ross, I'll help you out. I'll answer one for you. Give you a speaking break. Whitney, I saw this question come in. At my company, it's marketing that's typically been tasked with getting G2 reviews. Sounds like it's more effective when CS led. How can we promote the behavior change in our organization? I would say, like, not necessarily completely pivoting to only CS led, but it's how do you bring your CS team a little bit more into the fold and being responsible for those reviews as well. And the best way, I kind of mentioned this earlier with like an internal competition or a CSM spiff. We've done this many times here at G2 where my team has kind of asked their customers for reviews. It's very meta of them to be doing that, but trying to get them involved with, we usually create custom, UTM kind of codes for you all so that you can use specific links and then we can track who's winning, and you can make it a little bit more fun to kind of kick things off and get folks a little bit more brought into the fold of being responsible for helping to collect those reviews. And it's really fun because sometimes your CSMs or account managers will also get shout outs. And I've actually delivered a printed review to a booth this year where the CSM was like, this is my customer. So it can create some of that excitement and enthusiasm for them too, where they're getting feedback from their customers. So I would say it really can be like not necessarily an either or, but more of an and how can you bring the other folks into the fold? But those competitions are a really great way to start.
All right. I think we have time for one more. Sarah, thank you for the question here. So is there a way to gain insights into the fine-grained prompt patterns that buyers are using? This is a great question. This is currently one of the gaps that exist within LLMs versus SEO, in that Google has over the years been actually pretty great in providing the specific search volumes coming through for specific keywords. And so far, OpenAI and the different platforms have not yet provided that same transparency. But the method that we're using to essentially come up with the prompts that we're measuring ourselves against, it starts with SEO research, right? So it starts with understanding at that category level, what is the primary keyword for that category? And then what are the longer tail derivatives of that primary keyword, and kind of like, what are the intents of those? So are they looking for specific features? Are they looking for something for a small business or an enterprise? What are all the different kind of permutations and nuances to keywords? And we take that as SEO data. And then what we do is we develop a set of prompts based off that SEO data relative to the search volume of each of those longer tail keywords. But then we plug all that in ChatGPT and generate a list of essentially prompts that our users and buyers would be using. And you can do the same if you kind of use that keyword research plus your ICP profile for your buyers. You can then come up with the specific prompts that you want to use within a tool like this. So thank you all. This has been great. Thank you all for all the engagement and questions. I do want to make one more plug here before we wrap up. If this was helpful for you today, there is lots of great content just like this, both through our G2 University program and also through more great content like this on a monthly basis through G2U Edge. There's URLs at the bottom here. Please visit our resources at sell.g2, and you can find historical recordings of these, as well as find out about the next one coming up. So thank you all. We will post the slides and then send out the recording shortly. And thanks again for joining. Have a wonderful day.
Hi, everyone.